Hello student, today's class is on types and uses of biochemical tests. Coming to introduction, clinical biochemistry is a laboratory service or branch of laboratory medicine in which chemical and biochemical methods are applied to the study of disease. It helps clinicians to determine the diagnosis and prognosis of a disease. Biochemical tests performed in the clinical laboratory comprises of the routine or core tests, some specialized tests and few emergency tests. The core biochemical tests are the blood or urine tests which are routinely performed for all patients. Specialized tests are the tests which are not routinely done, but it is often recommended to confirm any unusual symptoms or to diagnose some uncommon diseases. Emergency tests are performed in medical emergencies when the test results follows an immediate medical attention and treatment. Now coming to core biochemical tests. These are the commonly requested or routine tests which are of value in many patients on frequent basis. Routinely performed clinical chemistry tests include: number 1, tests for electrolytes like sodium, potassium, chloride and bicarbonate. Their levels in the blood are commonly analyzed in an electrolyte profile because their concentration provides the most relevant information about the osmotic, water homeostasis and acid-base status of the body. Second, kidney function tests like tests for blood urea nitrogen, creatinine and uric acid. Third, liver function tests like tests for serum bilirubin, direct or indirect or total, aspartate transaminase AST, alanine transaminase ALT, alkaline phosphatase ALP, serum total protein, albumin, globulins, Ag ratios, etc. Number 4, tests for glucose. Glucose is the primary source of energy in the body. Regulation of blood glucose level in the normal range is influenced by many hormones, among which insulin is the only hormone which brings down high level of blood glucose to normal level. The normal random blood glucose range is 70 to 140 mg per dl. Hypoglycemia is a decrease in blood glucose concentration below normal range, and hyperglycemia is a blood glucose concentration above the normal range which is seen in the metabolic disorder for carbohydrate known as diabetes mellitus. Number 5, tests for calcium and phosphorus. Number 6, tests for blood disorders like iron, transferrin, folic acid tests, etc. Now coming to specialized tests. This includes tests for hormones, specific proteins, trace elements, vitamins, drugs, lipids and lipoproteins, DNA analysis, electrophoresis of serum protein, etc. This has particular application to general medicine, cardiology, oncology, pediatrics, endocrinology and obstetric practice. Let us now discuss about few of these tests. Number 1, hormone analysis. Thyroid hormones like T3, T4 and TSH in blood can be tested as a special test. Thyroid hormones can be tested to determine whether the thyroid gland is underactive or hyperactive. Hypothyroidism refers to the condition when there is low level of thyroid hormones in the blood, and hyperthyroidism refers to the condition when there is a high level of thyroid hormones in the blood. Increase or decreased level of thyroid hormones can be due to underlying disease, for example, autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's thyroiditis or defect in the thyroid gland itself. Number 2, tests for ammonia and its clinical importance. Hyperammonemia, that is elevated blood ammonia level, is a feature for disorder of enzymes in the urea cycle and disorders of dibasic branch chain amino acid metabolism. Number 3. D-dimer test. D-dimer is a soluble protein which is formed from thrombin by cleaving the fibrinopeptides A and B. Fibrin degradation products, that is FDPs, are formed whenever fibrin is broken down by enzymes plasmin. Determining FDPs are not considered useful as this does not indicate whether the fibrin is a part of the blood clot, but D-dimer is unique in that they are the breakdown products of a fibrin mesh that has been stabilized by factor 13. D-dimer test is a blood test performed in medical laboratories to diagnose thrombosis. The test may also be considered at intervals where the patient is undergoing treatment for disease related to coagulation to help monitor its progress. Number 4. Glycated hemoglobin or HbA1c. Glycation of hemoglobin is a non-enzymatic process where the addition of sugar residue to amino group of proteins take place. The formation of glycated hemoglobin is an irreversible process and its level in blood depends on both the lifespan of the red blood cell and the blood glucose concentration. The amount of HbA1c therefore represents the integrated values for glucose over the preceding 6 to 8 weeks, and it provides an additional criterion for assessing glucose control. This test can be done to detect diabetes mellitus and to know the past history of glucose like 6 weeks to check whether his or her blood glucose is under control. This test can be done to detect diabetes mellitus and to know the past history of glucose like 8 weeks to check whether his or her blood glucose is under control. The normal HbA1c level is between 4% and 5.6%. HbA1c levels between 5.7% and 6.4% means that the individual have a higher chance of getting diabetes. Levels of 6.5% or higher means that the individual have diabetes. Number 5. Tumor marker test. A tumor marker is a substance produced by a tumor or by the host in response to a tumor. This test is used to differentiate a tumor from normal tissues or to determine the presence of tumor based on measurements in the blood or secretion. Few markers are specific for a single individual tumor, that is tumor specific markers, and most are found with different tumors of the same tissue type like tumor associated markers. Few examples of tumor marker tests are human chorionic gonadotropin (HCG) is a glycoprotein which is secreted by the syncytiotrophoblasts cells of normal placenta. Elevated HCG concentrations are seen in pregnancy, but elevated levels above normal are seen in trophoblastic disease, germline tumors and tumors of placenta, that is trophoblastic tumors. Carbohydrate tumor markers or CA are either antigen on the tumor cell surface or secreted by the tumor cells. For example, CA125 is a glycoprotein normally expressed in coelomic epithelial during fetal development. A blood level below 35 units per ml is considered normal, but elevated levels are seen in ovarian cancer, polycystic ovarian diseases like PCOD, etc. Carcinoembryonic antigen or CEA is most useful test as a marker for colorectal, gastrointestinal, lung and breast carcinomas. Number 6. Double-stranded DNA antibodies or dsDNA test. Autoimmune diseases occur when damage results from immune reactions against normal body components. Immune diseases can be organ-specific like chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis of thyroid gland, and systemic diseases like systemic lupus erythematosus (SLE), mixed connective tissue disease, that is MCTD. dsDNA antibody tests are done for the diagnosis of SLE. Now coming to emergency tests. All clinical biochemistry laboratories provide facilities for urgent tests. An urgent test is designated as one on which the clinician is likely to take immediate action. Emergency tests are mostly done when the immediate management of the patient relies on the result of few emergency tests conducted. The emergency lab conducts tests mainly troponin, electrolyte, few enzymes, arterial blood gas and pH from either body fluids or blood. Bilirubin tests for neonates can be done on an emergency basis. Now let us discuss few of them. Number 1, troponin tests. These are primarily ordered to help diagnose a heart attack or rule out other conditions with similar signs and symptoms. Either a troponin I or troponin T test can be performed. Troponin I and troponin T are proteins found in heart muscle and are released in the blood when there is damage to the heart. Troponin tests are sometimes ordered along with other cardiac biomarkers such as CKMB or myoglobin. However, troponin is the preferred test for a suspected heart attack because it is more specific for heart injury than other tests, which may be elevated in the blood with skeletal muscle injury and it remains elevated for a longer period of time. A high troponin and even slight elevations may indicate some degree of damage to the heart. In people with angina, an elevated troponin may indicate that their condition is worsening and they are at increased risk of a heart attack. Troponin levels may also be elevated with other heart conditions such as myocarditis, that is heart inflammation, weakening of the heart, cardiomyopathy or congestive heart failure. Number 2, arterial blood gas test. It is done as an emergency and special test to measure the pH of blood. Normal blood pH is 7.35 to 7.45. If the pH of blood is more than a normal range, it is termed as alkalemia and the condition is known as alkalosis. The pH lesser than normal range is called acidemia and the condition is known as acidosis. The acid-base homeostasis should be maintained for cellular viability, enzymatic reactions, protein conformation and CNS function, etc. These functions are modified when there is change in the cellular or extracellular acid-base status. The change in pH has serious effects and therefore the control of pH is necessary. Thus, it is one of the emergency tests performed in intensive care units. Number 3, serum bilirubin test. It is done in neonates as an emergency test to determine neonatal or physiological jaundice. The test will also help to monitor the level of bilirubin so that bilirubin in blood does not cross the blood-brain barrier causing kernicterus, that is bilirubin-induced brain dysfunction. Bilirubin is a naturally occurring substance in the body of humans and many other animals, but it is neurotoxic when its concentration in the blood is too high, a condition known as hyperbilirubinemia. When this happens in adults, it is usually because of liver problems, but newborns are especially vulnerable to hyperbilirubinemia induced neurological damage because in the earliest days of life, the young and still developing liver is heavily exercised by the breakdown of fetal hemoglobin as it is replaced with adult hemoglobin. Now let's see what is the use of performing laboratory biochemical tests. The results of biochemical tests may be of use in 1. diagnosis and in the monitoring of treatment. Second, screening for disease or in assessing the prognosis. Third, research into the biochemical basis of disease. Fourth, clinical trials of new drugs. Now coming to conclusion. In this lesson, we have learned that in clinical biochemistry, apart from the routine biochemical tests, there are some specialized tests and also some emergency tests. The routine blood tests includes tests for renal function, liver, heart, specific proteins, lipids, proteins, iron indices, glucose, etc. All routine tests are quantitative. This core biochemical test can be done on blood or urine sample. The special tests can include the test for hormones, vitamins, tumor markers or detection of autoantibodies. Emergency tests are the one required on an emergency basis. For example, determination of blood pH, troponin tests as a marker for myocardial infarction are some of the emergency tests done in clinical labs. Thank you.